In Somalia, 1992, the nation is unraveling. Famine and civil war have gripped the land, claiming over 300,000 lives through starvation, while chaos reigns in the streets. Amid this turmoil, a massive United Nations peacekeeping force of 20,000 soldiers is deployed, but their efforts face a sinister roadblock. Mohamed Farah Aidid, a self-proclaimed president who uses hunger as a weapon, seizing food shipments at the borders and keeping his people in desperate submission. By April 1993, with most peacekeepers withdrawn, the situation deteriorates further. Aidid's militia declares open war on the remaining UN forces, targeting their personnel with brutal efficiency. After the slaughter of 24 Pakistani soldiers in June, American forces prepare to intervene. By August, the United States deploys elite units, Army Rangers, Delta Force, and the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, known as the Night Stalkers. Their mission is clear but daunting: capture Mohamed Farah Aidid. It's supposed to take 3 weeks. 6 weeks later, frustration is growing in Washington, and Aidid's stronghold in Mogadishu's Bakara market remains firmly under his control. The tension escalates when Rangers and Delta operatives capture Osman Ali Addo, a warlord supplying arms to Aidid's militia. Face to face with General Garrison, Addo scoffs at the intervention, calling it unwelcome meddling in Somalia's civil war. Meanwhile, the US forces remain stationed at Mogadishu Airport, a precarious base of operations. Among the soldiers, stark contrasts emerge. Captain Steele, commanding the Rangers, sees the Delta operators, including veterans like SFC Jeff Sanderson, MSG Chris Wex, and Norm Hoot Gibson, as reckless cowboys who ignore protocols. This uneasy dynamic is further complicated by the arrival of new recruits, including PFC Todd Blackburn, who is eager but green. When Lieutenant Beals is removed from duty due to a seizure, Staff Sergeant Matt Eversman reluctantly takes command of Ranger Chalk 4, his first ever command. The weight of responsibility is immense, and failure is not an option. In the shadows of Mogadishu, SFC Hoot Gibson works undercover, gathering critical intelligence for the mission ahead. The target, 2 of Aidid's top advisors, Omar Salad Elmi and Abdi Hassan Awale Kabdiad. On October 3, 1993, General Garrison receives confirmation from multiple sources that the advisors will be meeting in Bakara Market. The mission is set in motion. Despite the risks, light armored helicopters are denied, deemed too high profile for this operation. Instead, Black Hawks and AH-6J Littlebirds are tasked with providing air cover. Colonel Matthews is to lead the air assault team, but experienced commanders like Danny McKnight voice their doubts. A mission in broad daylight, with minimal air support, seems destined for trouble. Yet, Garrison stands firm. The enemy chooses the time and place, not him. As the soldiers prepare for what lies ahead, a sense of foreboding hangs in the air. Because in Mogadishu, nothing ever goes according to plan. Eversman rallies his squad for what seems like a straightforward mission, a 30-minute operation in broad daylight. Among them is SPC John Grimesy Grimes, a desk clerk venturing into combat for the first time as a replacement for an injured gunner. The team makes last-minute preparations. One soldier decides to forego their bulletproof backplate to move faster, another tapes their blood type to their boots. Grimes is advised to skip water and night vision gear, a decision that feels routine but will come to haunt them. Meanwhile, SFC Randy Shugart makes a quiet, poignant phone call home, a small act heavy with unspoken foreboding. The target zone, a mere 3 miles from the airport. What could go wrong? On the other side of the conflict, Yusuf Dahir Moalim, the commanding force behind Aidid's militia, is already a step ahead. His informants tip him off the moment US helicopters lift off. By the time the rotors echo over Mogadishu, Moalim's men are locked and loaded, poised to strike. At exactly 3:42 p.m., US troops hit the ground, kicking off the operation. Delta Force efficiently captures Aidid's key advisors inside the target building, but what starts as a calculated strike quickly spirals into chaos. Chalk 4, led by Eversman, is mistakenly dropped a block away, and disaster strikes when Blackburn plummets from a Black Hawk, suffering severe injuries. SGT Jeff Strucker's Humvee team is ordered to rush Blackburn and the captured advisors back to the UN-held Mogadishu airport. But just as they set out, gunfire erupts. SGT Dominic Pilla, manning a Humvee gun, is fatally shot, marking the first of many casualties. Then, the unthinkable happens. Black Hawk Super 6-1 is hit by an RPG and crashes deep in enemy territory. The haunting call, Black Hawk down, echoes across the radios, signaling a grim shift in the mission. At the crash site, the scene is devastating. The pilots don't survive, the crew chiefs are wounded, and a lone Delta sniper narrowly escapes in another helicopter. Eversman's squad is ordered to secure the area around the wreckage, setting the stage for a tense standoff. Simultaneously, Strucker's convoy attempts to navigate Mogadishu's hostile streets, but faces relentless RPG fire and mounting casualties. Roadblocks throw LTC Danny McKnight's Humvee column off course, leaving the convoy stranded and vulnerable. Even the prisoners being transported aren't spared. Several are killed when RPGs strike the transport trucks. Back at the crash site, Eversman and his men dig in, awaiting extraction while protecting the wounded crew. Reinforcements arrive under a hail of gunfire, barely escaping the same fate as Super 6-1. Meanwhile, Super 6-4, piloted by CWO Michael Durant, is struck down by yet another RPG, crashing blocks away and scattering the battlefield even further. Every decision, every moment, pulls the soldiers deeper into a desperate struggle for survival, with no end in sight. With CPT Mike Steele's Rangers pinned down and suffering devastating losses, the situation grows increasingly desperate. No ground forces can reach the crash site of Super 6-4, nor can they reinforce the Rangers defending the downed Super 6-1. Tensions flare as Delta's Sanderson clashes with Steele over his situational awareness and leadership amidst the chaos. Determined to save his men, Sanderson wrests control and crafts a daring plan to lead the team to safety. Meanwhile, two Delta snipers, SFC Randy Shugart and MSG Gary Gordon, volunteer for a high-risk mission. They are airlifted to Super 6-4's crash site, where they find Durant alive, but the situation dire. Before deploying, they are warned. Ground reinforcements may take far longer than expected to arrive. Back at the base, Gibson's Humvee column is dispatched to the site, but before they can break through, the crash site is overwhelmed. Shugart and Gordon make their last stand, buying precious time before they are killed, leaving Durant captured and taken hostage by IDID's forces. Elsewhere, Nelson and SPC Lance Toonbley find themselves abandoned at the original target building. Unsure of their next move, and realizing they may have been forgotten, they decide to fight their way towards Super 6-1's crash site, encountering SPC Mike Kurth along the way. Sanderson leads a determined Delta team in a parallel effort to reach the same location, knowing the clock is ticking. At 4:54 p.m., McKnight's convoy, battered and unable to push through to 6-1's site, is forced to retreat to the base, carrying survivors, casualties, and prisoners. But the battle isn't over. MG Garrison orders the 10th Mountain Division to mobilize, a multinational force that includes Malaysian and Pakistani units equipped with tanks and APCs. As Gibson's relief Humvee column faces roadblocks, he and a small team press forward on foot toward the besieged crash site, determined to reinforce the trapped soldiers. By nightfall, Nelson, Toonbley, and Kurth have reached Super 6-1's location, linking up with Eversman and his men. Darkness envelops the battlefield as the Somali militia launches a relentless assault on the Americans holding the crash site. The defenders fight through the night, aided by the ferocious strafing runs and rocket attacks of AH-6J Little Bird helicopter gunships. Finally, as dawn breaks, the 10th Mountain Division's relief column arrives, providing the lifeline the soldiers desperately needed. Evacuations begin. Wounded are loaded into vehicles, while the remaining Rangers and Delta operatives are forced to run on foot through hostile streets to the safety of the UN-controlled stadium. As the credits roll, the staggering toll of the raid is revealed. 19 American soldiers lost their lives, while over 1,000 Somalis were killed. Durant endured 11 days of captivity before being released. Shugart and Gordon's extraordinary bravery earned them posthumous Medals of Honor, the first since Vietnam. Years later, on August 2, 1996, Adid was killed in a skirmish with a rival clan. The very next day, General Garrison retired, marking the end of an era shaped by sacrifice, courage, and unyielding resilience.